Mache. The first thing I'd like to do in this brief presentation is acknowledge the fact that we're making it in the traditional territory of the Matawamii First Nation. And as I look out my window, and as I sit on a height of land here, I'm looking at the vast expanses of the Matawamii Valley, Matawamii River Valley, which is, of course, the key reason why Timmins is sitting here. The city of Timmins was founded on finding of gold, and the gold in this region would not have been found as easily as it has been found and was found without the tremendous assistance of the First Nation community. Stéphane Lafricaine, in a book called Old Man of the River, describes how, and Harry Preston acknowledges the fact, and Harry Preston was a member of the Wilson Gold Party, that he spent 2 winters with Stéphane Lafricaine in Nighthawk Lake, and Stéphane Lafricaine told him exactly where the gold was in the Porcupine Camp. And Harry Preston, of course, they went south of the lake. Hunter was east of the lake. Bannermans were north of the lake. Orr was still out in Nighthawk Lake. Went south of the lake along an old portage route from the south end of Porcupine Lake through to Matawamii Landing, right directly north of the discovery of the Dome Mine. And right after them, Hollinger and came with Gillies and found, and they were sent further west, and just directly north of the trail there, they found the Hollinger Mine. We were never taught that in the history books. As a young child, in elementary school, I made a presentation about the history of Timmins, and so I just started in 1907, 1905, the discovery of gold. I wasn't taught anything about the previous era of Indigenous exploration, Indigenous development, Indigenous presence in the land. And that's fundamentally wrong, because it changes your ideas of the contribution of the Indigenous community to the fact that Timmins is here and why it's here. And it's important that we know that. It's important that we acknowledge that. The cultural benefits that they brought to our land, I'm sure everybody in the North recognizes and identifies with the spirit of the North, the freedom that comes from the open spaces, the spirituality that is with us all because of where we live, and of course the key element of the Indigenous experience and culture. We have to recognize that we have those common beliefs, common ideas, common values. It's important that we understand as well the role that we played as white people in the eventual systemic racism and our views with the Indigenous community. When the treaties were signed initially, the land treaties, the government purposely had one individual that was part of those treaty parties that ensured that the land that was given to the Indigenous communities did not have any economic value. We have to acknowledge that. And we have to recognize what that led to. It led to poverty. And it was Gandhi who said the worst form of racism is poverty. And it's a tremendously insightful saying, but it's one where we contributed to immensely vis-a-vis that racism through extensive poverty. We see that all around us. We see the large numbers of reserves where the conditions are third world conditions, and we can do far better, and we need to better, and we need to treat people as equals. I made a pledge to Chief Jonathan Solomon when we signed our MOU with Timmins, and it was a pledge that we would acknowledge and deal with the racist incidents that have happened in Timmins. He was talking specifically at that time about an executive assistant of his who was harassed by a taxi cab driver and bullied and made to feel less than. Pat Chilton with the granddaughter in kindergarten with a tremendously racist experience coming from the grandmother of one of the white girls she was in school with. These have to be addressed. They have to be recognized. Because I believe that the city of Timmins is full of warm, loving and kind people. And we see it every single day, that the hundreds of meals are dealt with through volunteers, the contributions from a large part of our population. And every one act of racism defeats the good spirit and intention of all those volunteers that are working to help. But that is not enough. There's an opportunity now. There's an opportunity now based on a great awakening that we see happening throughout North America and perhaps the world. An awakening that recognizes racism. An awakening that recognizes what racism does and how it affects our Indigenous people here in the North. And it's awakening that cannot be lost. It involves the youth of our country. It involves a huge understanding, an ultimate understanding of what this means to fundamentally change. It involves an understanding now and a consensus of belief that we can move this forward now. We need the leadership of the Indigenous community, especially in the North, to speak with one voice. We need to move the economic and social and cultural ball forward. We can redefine Canada, as I've said many, many times, on showing how Timmins, with the Indigenous communities as partners, can really, truly show the right path forward on the truth, on reconciliation, truth and reconciliation. We can do this together. We can be the model. We can harness this great awakening and make it happening now, and make it happen now. It's entirely possible, and it's entirely possible on this National Indigenous Peoples Day. It's a good time to get started at this, speaking with one voice through this whole great region of northeastern Ontario. We can get this done. We can do it correctly, and we can be the model of the world. Have a great day. Thank you.